This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite... Alright, give it a rest. All Access membership is available for $150 off at the moment up till Christmas Eve. If you're looking for an opportunity to get in at that, so $99 for access to all of the Truefire stuff for a year. Pretty good deal. According to a study by Fender Guitars, 90% of new guitar players abandon playing within 1 year. And the 10% that don't quit spend an average of $10,000 on hardware over their lifetime, buying between 5 and 7 guitars and multiple amps. Now, if you can remember vaguely, if you're someone who's watching this channel, presumably you're in the 10%, so congrats on that. How much you've spent on guitars over your lifetime? I'm assuming that for a lot of us, it'll be quite a lot more than that. You know, 5 to 7 guitars over I own more than that right now, let alone how many I've owned. Easily sort of 10 times that amount. But in this video, I wanted to suggest to you then that it is the most important guitars being made are the cheaper guitars that people are maybe beginning their careers on, and not so much the expensive things that only 10% of us will end up ever owning, but actually things like, you know, your Squier Debut, your Squier Affinity, your PRS-C 24 Satin. I think these are actually the more important guitars. So let's talk about that for a bit. Earlier in the last couple of weeks, I did a video. My dad had bought my niece this pink guitar that my niece has sort of expressed an interest in starting guitar, and I kind of picked it up. And as someone who's obviously played guitar for like nearly 30 years, the sounds that came out of it were even more amateur than usual you hear from me. So I've had a couple of students over the years that have gone and done grades, and you think, like, if they had a half decent guitar, how much better might they sound? Like, it's quite easy to make a really bad guitar sound bad, even if you're like okay at playing, right? Is what I've found. So if 90% of people are abandoning the instrument, is any part of this down to like low quality gear or gear that's like made for landfill? And this is, yeah, a thing that's been a little bit difficult for me. There's one time I got asked to kind of demo this starter pack, and I kind of tried the guitar, made a video, and was like, it's okay, like it has frets and stuff, it's kind of like a guitar, but actually wasn't that impressive. And the manufacturer was like, we'd rather you either refilmed it and were more positive about it, or just don't put it up. And in the end, we kind of decided, well, let's just not put that up. But I think it is important. I've been branded as like a poster child for cheap guitars. I think it is, for me, I think that's a good thing. Like, if you can highlight things that are actually really good for the money, then hopefully it means that folks out there that are, you know, considering starting are going to maybe avoid things that are going to put them off for life, and it's going to bring them into the fold of guitar players that are going to hopefully end up buying some more expensive stuff. The CE24 Satin, I grabbed this one earlier in the week, £399. Honestly, like, quite a good feeling guitar, good sounding, and really impressive for the money. Equally, the Squier debut, you saw me, I did a gig with it last week, and it's a pretty reasonable guitar. The action is creeping up because of the weather, and it's not particularly well, like, it's not a sealed piece of wood, but that's kind of just what I'm discovering for myself. Like, you know, it's not to diminish the art of building guitars or anything, but if you've been given sort of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 to create a guitar, to me it should be the case that that's like an amazing instrument, right? And it's not, that isn't what you'd automatically expect. When you are able to find pieces of gear that really do hold their own against expensive instruments, but they're at the sort of £200, £300, even maybe even lower sometimes, you might get lucky with a Squier, like this Squier debut from Amazon, like pretty good. Some Squier Affinities, like my neighbour's Squier Affinity, pretty good. Like, honestly, like, I could get through an entire gig on this and I wasn't like, I need to change that. I think that is actually more important. And in terms of like PRS SE, the numbers back in like 2022, I think, were that I think 12,000 guitars a month are made for PRS SE, and something like 2,000 a month are made for PRS Core. The cheaper end of the market is actually the biggest part of the guitar market, which, now that I say it, is obvious, but I think it's important to try and highlight things that are actually good for the money versus things that are maybe just mediocre or worse. So that for me is kind of just what I wanted to sort of briefly touch on. You know, as someone who's been accused of being a poster boy for cheap guitars, kind of, yes, I think if it's true that these things are good, then why not talk about cheaper, good guitars? You're getting a good amount of value for money. One other thing I'd say is that I think at the cheaper end of the market, you get, like, it scales up really quickly. That, you know, you spend 60 quid on a guitar, you might get a piece of junk. You spend 129, something pretty good. Spend 400, get something really, really decent for the money, you know, like a PRS CE24. And then beyond that, I think, is where you start to get into diminishing returns, you know, like a PRS Silver Sky SE, a Mexican Player. These can be some really, really good guitars that you could actually get out there and play a gig on. And beyond that, kind of, that's also what other guitars that are more expensive kind of get to. You get, you know, better quality, you might get more exotic wood, you might get better pickups and all that stuff, but ultimately it's in that sort of £300 to £600, £300 to £700 range where you can get these, sometimes a guitar that really punches super far above its weight, I think. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments and your favourite cheaper guitar brands if you want to, you know, help people scrolling in comments find some suggestions. If you've got great suggestions for like cheaper budget guitars that you think I should check out, please feel free to send me an email, because I am always on the lookout for these things. Squiers can be fairly safe. Yamaha Pacifica, fairly safe. The PRS C24 Satins, I've played 3 of them, all really good. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts.